James returned to Edmonton for winter break filled with anticipation. College treated him well, but there was something about coming back to his hometown which stirred up a mix of nostalgia and excitement. As he settled into his childhood bedroom, he couldn't shake the restlessness which hit him since he arrived. It was the night before Christmas Eve, and he found himself unable to sleep. Deciding to channel his energy into something productive, he headed to a nearby 24-hour gym for a late-night workout. The crisp winter air stung his cheeks as he made his way through the quiet streets, the city blanketed in a fresh, thin layer of snow. It hadn't snowed much up here this winter, which was fine for him because after going to school in BC for 1.5 years, he didn't miss the harsh winters he was used to. Inside the gym, he focused on pushing himself to the limit. The rhythmic sound of his heart pounded in his ears. Lost in his own world, he was taken aback when he spotted someone familiar across the room. He only looked because the person clearly violated the rules and worked out without a shirt on. He didn't think much of it, as they were the only two there that night beside the disinterested desk attendant. It took him a moment to recognize the figure. It was Connor, the only man he ever loved but never told. They hadn't seen each other in the 2 years since high school graduation, and yet the sight of him stirred up a flurry of emotions. Time was kind to Connor, filled out his once skinny frame and transformed him into a handsome young man. Their eyes met, and for a moment, nothing else mattered as they processed the unexpected reunion. Then without hesitation, James made his way over to him, a smile spread across his face. "Connor, hey!" His voice was laced with genuine warmth. "James?" Surprise filled Connor's eyes. "How are you?" They fell into an easy conversation, caught up on the events since they last met. James found himself drawn to his easy laughter and the way his eyes lit up when he spoke about his passions. He forgot how familiar it all was. As the night wore on, James couldn't shake the idea fate brought them together once again. Emboldened by the warmth of their reunion, he found himself blurting out an invitation before he could second-guess himself. "There's a party at an old friend's place on the 26th. I'd love for you to come with me," James said, his heart pounded with anticipation. Connor hesitated for a moment. His gaze flickered with uncertainty. James could sense the hesitation. The doubts from their high school days still lingered in the air. But then, with a nod and a smile, he accepted the invitation, and James felt a surge of joy swell within him. As James made his way back home, the weight of anticipation lifted from his shoulders, replaced by a newfound sense of hope and possibility. After Christmas dinner with his family and the night wore down, James found himself fidgeting with the new phone his dad got him. Mostly on social media, he couldn't stop himself from looking over Connor's posts. He couldn't explain the nervous flutter in his stomach, the way his heart raced at the mere thought of seeing his friend again. It was a feeling he wasn't accustomed to, a feeling of vulnerability which was both exhilarating and unnerving. Usually he was the epitome of confidence, never shy to strike up a conversation with anyone, especially women. Never had a problem in that area. But Connor was different. There was something about him, something intangible yet magnetic, which drew him in. It was as if he came from another planet entirely. His presence cast a spell over him which James couldn't quite shake. With a deep breath, he finally mustered the courage to send him a message. It was simple. A confirmation of their plans for the following day, but the words felt heavy. As he hit send, he couldn't help but wonder what awaited him on the other side of the message. To his relief, a response came within minutes. They exchanged a few messages back and forth which quickly moved from passive to receiving his full attention. The conversation flowed effortlessly as they discussed everything from their favorite memories of high school to their plans for their respective futures. As the evening wore on, he found himself drawn to his phone, unable to tear himself away from the steady stream of messages. It was a strange sensation, this feeling of being connected to someone in a way he never experienced before. Getting to know the man that was once the boy he was so fond of filled him with excitement. With each message, he felt himself opening up, revealing parts of himself he kept hidden for so long. Eventually, their conversation transitioned from text to their voices filled the quiet darkness of the night. They laughed and joked. Their conversation meandered from one topic to the next, never missing a beat. As the hours slipped by, James found himself growing drowsy, his eyelids heavy with exhaustion. But he didn't want the conversation to end. Not yet. Not when he was feeling more alive than he did in years. And so, without thinking, he made a spontaneous decision. "Hey, do you mind if I stay on the line while I fall asleep?" he asked, his voice tinged with uncertainty. He couldn't help but feel dumb immediately after the words left his mouth. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line, and he held his breath, fearing rejection. But then, to his relief, he heard a soft chuckle, warm and reassuring. "Yeah, I'd like that," Connor replied, his voice gentle and soothing. "But I might fall asleep before you." And so, with Connor's voice as his lullaby, he drifted off to sleep, feeling a sense of peace wash over him. The night of the party arrived, and James found himself in front of his closet, changing shirts for what felt like the 100th time. He couldn't shake the nervous energy that coursed through him. His hands trembled as he adjusted his clothes. Each outfit seemed wrong, too flashy, too dull, too something. In the end, he settled for a plain shirt and jeans, the most casual ensemble he could muster. As he paced back and forth in his room, his mother noticed his agitation from the doorway. With a knowing look, she approached him and placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" she asked gently, her voice filled with concern. He hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to articulate his jumbled thoughts and emotions. Finally, he let out a sigh. His shoulders sagged with the weight of his anxiety. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I guess I'm just nervous about seeing Connor again after all this time." His mother smiled sympathetically, her eyes filled with understanding. She was always a source of comfort and wisdom. Her unwavering support grounded him in moments of uncertainty. "You'll be fine," she reassured him, her tone soothing. "Just be yourself, and everything will fall into place. He wants to spend time with you, not with who you think is the best version of you." Her words were a relief to his frazzled nerves. With a grateful smile, he nodded, feeling a sense of calm he wished he found earlier. Minutes later, James pulled up in front of his house. His heart pounded in his chest. He took a deep breath, steeled himself for what lay ahead, before stepping out of the car and making his way to the door. When Connor opened the door, he felt his breath catch in his throat. He looked amazing in a crisp button-up shirt and well-fitted pants. His dark eyes sparkled with anticipation. James couldn't help but feel a pang of regret for dressing down so much, wishing he put in a bit more effort. The party was in full swing when they arrived, the air alive with laughter and music. James felt a sense of relief wash over him as he mingled with old friends and acquaintances and realized everyone had indeed grown up since high school. After an hour, the festivities teetered on an immaturity they were all familiar with, but no one there was a full adult yet, despite what their ages said. But then, just as James began to relax and enjoy himself, his old friend Walter walked into the room. His presence cast a shadow over the festivities. He felt a knot form in his stomach as Walter's eyes landed on Connor, a mischievous glint in his gaze. "Hey everyone, you can see the northern lights," he said. No one made much effort to move as they all grew up seeing it. "Hey Con, remember in 5th grade when you told everyone you saw spaceships in the northern lights?" Walter called out, his voice laced with mockery. James felt a surge of anger rise within him as he watched Connor's face flush with embarrassment. His eyes darted away from the accusing stares of those around him. Without hesitation, James stood, his voice firm. "Wow, how old are you? Can't you ever give anything a rest?" But Walter couldn't leave it alone. His laughter rang out like a bitter echo in the room. "How could I leave it alone?" he retorted. His words dripped with disdain. His crazy ass went on and on about it for weeks. It's all anyone thinks about when they see him. Unable to bear the humiliation any longer, Connor took a few awkward steps to grab his coat, his movements quick and desperate. All eyes followed him as he fled the room, leaving James feeling sick to his stomach. With a final glance at the room, he followed his friend out into the wintry night air, determined to make things right. As James stepped outside into the crisp winter air, he was greeted by the breathtaking sight of the northern lights dancing across the night sky. The ethereal glow cast a sense of wonder over the world, momentarily distracted him from the heavy weight of the conversation that just transpired. He hurried to catch up with him. He already walked past James's car and on his way toward the road. "Wait," he called out, his voice pleading. His march paused, his shoulders tense as he turned to face him. There was a weariness in his eyes, a pain James couldn't bear to see. "I'm sorry," James began, his words rushed and desperate. "I should have known. I didn't think it would come up. I'm sorry." But Connor shook his head. "No," he said, his voice weary but resolute. "You don't need to apologize for them. It's not your fault." James felt a lump form in his throat. The hurt in Connor's voice settled heavily on him. He wanted to argue, to insist he was to blame for what happened, but Connor's gaze silenced him. "You don't deserve any of it," James admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "If there's anything I want you to know, it's that you didn't deserve it." For a moment they stood in silence. The cold night air swirled around them like a tangible presence. Then James spoke again, his voice filled with determination. "Come on," he said, gesturing toward his car. "It's too cold to walk, even through town. Let me give you a ride home." After a moment of hesitation, Connor nodded. As they drove in silence, James couldn't shake the feeling of guilt. He knew he needed to make things right. When they arrived at Connor's house, he turned to him, his heart heavy with regret. But Connor spoke before James had a chance to. "I'm sick of being called. I've been laughed at all my life," Connor confessed, his voice filled with pain. "I wish I were more like you." "No," James interrupted, his voice soft but firm. "If I could—" "I know," Connor said, his tone resigned. "And I don't blame you for not wanting to be a freak. It isn't easy." "You're not a freak," he insisted, his words filled with conviction. They sat in silence for a few moments. Then, Connor opened the door and stepped out into the night and thanked James one last time. James didn't just wait for him to get inside before taking off, but he waited until a light came on inside before he felt okay leaving him there. On New Year's Eve, James found himself at home with his parents and younger sister, the warmth of their company a comforting balance to his troubled mind. They laughed and joked, switched between watching the ball drop in New York City and a live broadcast from a House of Blues in Vancouver. The sound of their voices filled the room with a sense of belonging. But as the hours slipped by and the clock struck 11, his phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. On the other end of the line, a woman spoke, her words shaky. "James, this is Connor's mother," she said, her voice trembled with emotion. "Is he with you?" He was on his feet before he knew it. His first thought was he would need warmer clothes than the ones he wore. "No," he said. "He's been missing since, he hasn't answered his phone all day, and I don't know what to do." He felt his blood run cold. The weight of the words sank in like a stone. Without a second thought, he was ready to bolt for the door. As he hung up the phone and turned to his family, their faces etched with concern, he knew the new year would bring challenges unlike any he faced before. But with Connor's safety hanging in the balance, he was determined to do whatever it took to bring him home. As he made his way through the frigid night, his breath formed clouds of mist in the air. He couldn't shake the sense of urgency. He knew exactly where to find him. The field where they first met. It's where Connor spent every New Year's, on the anniversary of when he saw the ships, and at the place he saw them. The field was a short distance from his house, nestled between two farm properties, its barren landscape illuminated only by the faint glow of the northern lights dancing overhead. Despite the deadly cold of the winter night, there hadn't been much snow yet that season, making it easier for him to navigate the path. As he approached the familiar spot, his heart pounded in his chest. he spotted a familiar shadow huddled between two trees. Relief flooded through him as he hurried toward the silhouette. His footsteps crunched softly in the snow. "Connor," he called out, his voice laced with concern. He looked up, his features drawn and haggard, but his eyes brightened with recognition as James approached. Without a word, he unfolded the blanket he brought with him and wrapped it around both of them, pulling him close despite his feeble protests. "I'm fine," he insisted, his voice muffled by the blanket. But he wouldn't hear it. He held him tightly, his arms a comforting anchor in the sea of uncertainty which surrounded them. And then, as they sat there in the stillness of the night, James began to speak. He told him the story of how they first met, how Connor met him halfway when everyone else wanted something from him. He spoke of the rare balance he found in him, of his warmth and kindness which shone like a beacon in the darkness. "You were nice. You were warm. You almost glowed," he said. Connor tried to protest, to dismiss his words as ridiculous, but James wouldn't let him. He spoke from the heart, laying bare his feelings for the man beside him. "You are real," James insisted. "The realest person I've ever known. My favorite person. The only man I ever loved. He's not a freak. He's amazing." Connor laughed, a sound which echoed through the stillness of the night, filling his heart with warmth. "What's so funny?" James asked, a smile tugged at the corners of his lips. "You guys aren't even from Earth, and yet I feel like I'm the one from Mars," Connor replied. His eyes sparkled with amusement. James smiled. "We're not from Mars. No one is. My people have been here for generations while you came on a spaceship, but I'm the one who never belonged here," Connor said. James's smile widened. "Or how about this?" Connor said. "Of course I'm a freak if the only man who's ever loved me isn't—" But before he could finish his sentence, James silenced him with a kiss. A first embrace years in the making. A kiss that sealed their bond in a way words never could. As they sat there, wrapped in each other's arms beneath the blanket of stars framed by the northern lights, James knew he finally found his home with him by his side. His family never intended to leave Earth, but now, he finally felt like they didn't need to. As the clock struck midnight, marking the beginning of a new year, they sat side by side in the warmth of the car, their fingers intertwined as they watched the world outside pass by in a blur of streetlights and shadows. "Being a freak is amazing," Connor said, his voice tinged with amusement as he looked over at him with a smile. James couldn't help but laugh, the sound light and carefree in the quiet of the night. "Yeah," he replied, his heart swelled with affection. "Yeah, it is."